She said it quietly, almost to herself. You know this isn't right. And I should have agreed. I should have stepped back, laughed it off, let the air between us cool. But instead, I just looked at her, and for a moment, it felt like time had chosen sides. It was late, though not too late. The kind of hour where everything softens, the light, the voices, even the truth. We were sitting across from each other in her kitchen, a bottle of wine between us, the last of it catching a streak of yellow from the lamp. She had her sleeves rolled up, hair pulled back messily, as if she'd stopped caring halfway through the day. And still, she looked like every version of calm I'd never managed to find. She laughed earlier, not at anything funny, just one of those low, unguarded laughs that made me feel like I'd been allowed into something private. Now, that warmth lingered, even in the silence. I remember how she held her glass, fingertips just touching the rim, as if the gesture itself was enough to keep her grounded. Mine was empty, and I hadn't noticed until she pointed it out. Want some more? She asked. Her voice had this softness that didn't match her words. The kind that made no sound feel harmless. Sure, I said. But I didn't move the glass closer, I just watched her pour. The way she tilted the bottle, her wrist turning gently, a small tremor in her fingers. It wasn't nerves. It was something else. When she passed it back, our hands brushed. Not a deliberate touch. Not an accident either. Her skin was warm, like she'd been holding the sun. My fingers hesitated before I took the glass, and she noticed. I could tell by how her breath caught, just a fraction of a second too long. You think too much, she said. About what? About everything. About me. She smiled, but it wasn't teasing. More like a confession she wasn't supposed to make. I don't think you mind that, I said, my voice quieter than I meant it to be. Her eyes flicked to mine. Green, or brown. I could never tell in this light. What mattered was how steady they were, how they seemed to weigh what I just said before deciding to keep it. I should, she murmured, her tone breaking on the edge of something unspoken. That's when it hit, that impossible tension that sits between two people when the world has already decided they shouldn't feel what they do. It hummed in the space between our words, in the hum of the refrigerator, in the faint rain against the window. I leaned back, tried to say something else, something normal. But nothing came. She looked away first, her jaw tightening, a small, silent act of resistance. Then she stood up, walked to the sink, and placed her glass down too carefully, like even the sound of it might reveal too much. Maybe I should call it a night, she said, though her voice didn't sound convinced. I nodded. Yeah. Probably. But neither of us moved. The clock ticked. Rain thickened. The wine bottle leaned like it was tired. Then, she turned slightly, just enough that I could see the side of her face. Her eyes met mine again, softer now, like the fight had drained out of her. You're too young to mean this, she said. I wanted to tell her she was wrong. That I'd never meant anything more in my life. But the words got stuck somewhere between my chest and my throat. She waited, one breath, two. Then she smiled, a faint, sad smile that felt like the closing of a door you never wanted shut. And that's when the real door opened, a sudden sound from the hallway. A voice calling her name. Her head turned sharply. My heart did too. She didn't move right away. Just whispered, almost to herself, don't say anything. And then the footsteps came closer. The next time I saw her, it wasn't planned. Or maybe it was, maybe some part of both of us wanted it to look like coincidence. It was late afternoon, the kind of light that makes everything feel a little like memory. She was sitting at the small cafe near campus, alone, with a half-finished cup of tea and a book she wasn't reading. Her hair was loose this time, falling against her cheek every time the wind pushed through the open door. When she saw me, she smiled in that slow, hesitant way of someone deciding whether to let the moment happen. Hey, I said. She closed the book but kept her finger inside it, like she wasn't ready to give it up. Hey yourself. I sat across from her. Neither of us mentioned the other night. But it hung there, between the hum of quiet conversations and the clink of spoons on porcelain. "How've you been?" she asked, like it was a normal question. "Busy. Trying to write, mostly." "You're still doing that, huh?" she said, a trace of pride under her tone. "Good." Then silence. That careful, polite kind, the one people use when they're pretending they're fine. I studied her hands resting on the table. No ring, no marks, but the faintest indentation where one must have been for years. She noticed me looking, and her fingers twitched, almost a flinch. "Divorced," she said, as if answering a question I hadn't asked. 2 years now." I nodded. "You don't have to explain." "I know," she said. "But I always feel like I should." Her laugh was soft, fragile. "I still forget sometimes. That I don't have to cook for someone, or wait up. That no one's coming home." The words sat heavy. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't. Instead, I reached for the sugar jar, and our hands brushed again. It wasn't deliberate, but this time, she didn't pull away. Her touch lingered, light but certain. Like she wanted to feel something real, just for a second. Then she did move, a slow withdrawal, her fingertips leaving behind a quiet ache. "People talk, you know," she said after a moment. "They'll say things. I don't care what they say." "I do." Her voice was steady but low. "I have to." We both looked down, her at the table, me at her reflection in the window. There was that small, invisible line between us again, drawn by years, by timing, by everything that shouldn't matter but somehow did. Still, she stayed. We talked until the cafe emptied, about nothing that mattered, books, bad weather, the taste of the tea. And yet, every word felt like a step closer to something neither of us wanted to name. When we finally stood, I moved to let her pass, but she brushed against me, a slow, accidental movement that wasn't accidental at all. Her shoulder grazed my arm, her perfume clinging like a quiet confession. She looked up at me once more, eyes soft, almost sad. "Don't make this harder," she whispered. But her hand stayed on my sleeve a moment too long before she let go. And in that pause, that small hesitation, something unspoken passed between us. Not a promise. Not yet. But something that would be harder to forget than either of us wanted to admit. To be continued. It happened again, another coincidence that wasn't one. She asked if I could help fix her computer. "Something small," she said. "A quick thing. 10 minutes, maybe." When I showed up, the lights in her apartment were dim, golden. Jazz playing low. The kind of music that fills the silence without covering it. Her hair was still damp from a shower, tied loosely, strands falling against her neck. I tried not to notice. Tried harder not to look like I was trying. "Thanks for coming," she said, leading me to the desk. "It keeps freezing." "I think I made it worse." "You didn't," I murmured, kneeling by the screen. My hand brushed hers when I reached for the mouse. She didn't move it right away. The computer flickered, booted, stayed on. "There," I said. "Fixed." "That easy?" I shrugged. "Guess you just needed someone to sit with it for a bit." She smiled, soft, but distant. "Story of my life." Something in her tone hit deeper than it should have. I wanted to ask what she meant. I didn't. She poured wine again, this time without offering first. Handed me a glass. We stood near the counter, not speaking. Just the faint hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of the wall clock. When she finally spoke, her voice was lower. "You shouldn't be here this late." "Probably not," I said. "Then why did you come?" I looked at her, really looked. The faint line between her brows, the softness around her mouth when she wasn't smiling. She was beautiful in the way that made you forget what the word even meant. "Because you asked," I said. She turned toward me then, slow, deliberate. The air changed, tighter, quieter. Her hand rested on the counter, inches from mine. Then closer. Our fingers brushed once, twice, like we were both testing gravity. "Don't," she whispered. But it didn't sound like don't. We didn't move. I could feel her breath, shallow, unsteady, the kind of closeness that makes every second feel like a decision. The silence stretched, trembling. Then, a vibration. Her phone lit up on the counter. A man's name on the screen. She flinched. Snatched it up, pressed decline. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, but her voice cracked. "Someone important?" I asked before I could stop myself. "No. Not anymore." Her eyes glistened, just barely. I wanted to reach for her, but she turned away, pretending to straighten a photo frame. "I don't want to be like this again," she said, more to herself than to me. "Like what?" "Wanting something I shouldn't." The words hung there, fragile, dangerous. I stepped closer, slow enough that she could have walked away. She didn't. The air between us was alive, charged, trembling. I could see the pulse in her neck, feel the heat from her skin. She looked up at me, eyes wide, unreadable. For a heartbeat, we hovered there, on the edge of something that could undo us both. Then she exhaled, barely a sound. "We can't," she said. But her hand, trembling, uncertain, lifted just enough to touch my face. Not a kiss. Not yet. Just the brief, impossible weight of her palm against my cheek. And in that small, forbidden touch, everything we were trying not to feel finally spoke for us. To be continued. It had been a week since that night, a week of silence that said too much. No calls. No messages. Just the echo of her voice, her hand on my cheek, the half-finished sentence between us. When she finally texted, "Can you stop by? Just for a minute." I didn't even pretend to hesitate. The evening was heavy with rain, that soft, constant kind that makes everything blur. Her apartment lights glowed through the window, warm against the gray outside. She opened the door before I could knock twice. Barefoot. Hair loose. A thin sweater slipping off one shoulder. "I shouldn't have called," she said. "But you did." Her lips parted, a small breath, then nothing. She stepped aside. I walked in. The room smelled like coffee and something faintly floral, something that felt like her. Music played low again, a slow piano piece that seemed to count every second between us. "You've been avoiding me," I said, my voice quiet. "I've been avoiding myself." She turned away, running her fingers along the back of the couch, as if she needed to hold on to something. "This, whatever this is, it can't keep happening." "It hasn't been happening," I said. "That's the problem." She looked over her shoulder, that look that disarms and dares at the same time. "You think this is simple? You're young. You'll forget." "I don't want to forget." Her eyes softened, then hardened again, as if she couldn't decide which side to stand on. "You think I don't feel it?" she said suddenly, her voice breaking. "Every time you walk in here, I feel it. And it scares me." She was trembling, not from cold, but from restraint. I took a step closer. She didn't move. "You don't have to be scared," I said. "Don't." Her word was barely a whisper. I stopped. Close enough to feel her breath on my skin. Close enough to see the way her pupils widened, that flicker of wanting and warning at once. "You make me forget how old I am," she said, voice cracking open. "You make me forget what people will say. What I've already lost." I reached up, slow, uncertain. My hand found the edge of her hair, brushed it gently away from her face. She didn't stop me. Her eyes closed. For a moment, she leaned in, just a fraction, enough to make my pulse stumble. "I've tried so hard to do the right thing," she murmured. "And you keep making me want the wrong one." I could smell the faint sweetness of her perfume, the warmth of her skin. Her hand lifted, fingertips grazing my arm, tracing upward until they stopped at my chest. "Say something," she whispered. "I can't." We were inches apart, her breath trembling against my mouth, my hand resting on the small of her back without meaning to. "Then don't," she said. And just as the words left her lips, a sharp sound cut through the air. A knock. Firm. Unmistakable. She froze. So did I. Her eyes met mine, wide, panicked, alive. "Don't move," she breathed. The knock came again. Louder this time. And between us, only one heartbeat, suspended in the space before everything would change. To be continued, the knocking stopped. Then came the sound of keys, metal brushing metal, like someone searching for the right one. She turned pale. "It's my sister," she whispered. "She still has a key." I stepped back quickly, my pulse hammering. "Then, go," she hissed, pointing toward the hallway. "Bedroom. Just, please." The desperation in her voice froze me for a second too long, but then the lock turned, and the door swung open. Her sister's voice filled the air, light, unsuspecting. "You left your phone at the studio." I figured I'd, then a pause. Footsteps. The shift in tone. "Who's here?" My breath caught. I could see through the crack in the bedroom door, her standing by the counter, trying to look casual. "No one," she said too fast. "Just, music." Her sister smiled faintly, holding out the phone. "Right. You've been alone a lot lately." "I'm fine." "You don't sound fine." The silence stretched. I could feel the tension bleeding into the walls, the way her shoulders stiffened under her sweater. "I should go," her sister finally said, softer. "But," he called again. "Who?" "Your ex said he misses you. Asked if you're seeing someone." Her face changed, not anger, not sadness, but something smaller, sharper. "He doesn't get to ask that anymore." "Still," her sister said, "you could just tell him the truth." "I am." Her voice was steady. Too steady. The door shut. Her sister's footsteps faded down the hall. I waited, one heartbeat, two, before stepping out. She was still standing there, eyes on the floor, arms crossed tightly over her chest. "You heard," she said without looking up. I nodded. Then she looked at me, eyes rimmed red but fierce. "He cheated on me for years. I stayed anyway. I told myself it was for love, it wasn't. It was fear." "I'm not him," I said quietly. "I know," she whispered. "That's what scares me." She turned away, pressing her palms against the counter as if to hold herself together. "You think this is just some fantasy, but you don't know what it's like to lose yourself in someone and wake up hating the person you became." Her voice cracked, trembling like the glass beside her. "I wouldn't do that to you," I said, stepping closer. She laughed softly, bitterly. "You already are." I stopped just behind her. The air between us was trembling again, the same dangerous closeness that had undone us before. "You think I don't feel it?" she whispered, eyes closing. "Every time you're near me, I feel it everywhere. And I hate how much I need it." Her hands gripped the edge of the counter. I reached out, not touching, just hovering, inches from her arm. "You're shaking," I said. "So are you," she murmured. She turned then, slowly, deliberately, until we were face to face again. The fear was still there, but so was something stronger. "I can't hide you anymore," she said. I frowned. "What do you mean?" I told him, she breathed, her voice trembling. "About us." The words hit like a crack of thunder, sharp, irreversible. For a moment, neither of us moved. The sound of rain filled the silence, steady and merciless. Then, with a kind of surrender that wasn't quite defeat, she whispered, "He's coming here." To be continued. The rain hadn't stopped. It fell harder now, slanting against the windows, turning everything outside into a blur. Inside, her apartment felt too small, too bright, too alive. "He's coming here?" I repeated. She nodded, arms wrapped around herself like she could hold the world back. "He said he just wants to talk. But you know what that means." I took a step toward her. "Then I'll go." "No," the word came out too fast, too sharp. She looked up, eyes wide. "If you leave now, you'll never come back." Something broke in her voice, something I hadn't heard before. Not fear. Not guilt. Just need. I moved closer, slow, cautious. "You don't have to protect me." "I'm not," she said, her breath catching. "I'm protecting what's left of me." We stood inches apart, neither touching, both waiting for the other to do the impossible, to stop. "You think walking away will fix it?" I said. She shook her head, tears threatening but not falling. "No. But staying will ruin us." Her hand lifted, hesitated in the air between us. Then it found my chest, flat against my heartbeat, trembling. "Listen," she whispered. "Do you hear how fast it is?" I covered her hand with mine. "It matches yours." Her lips parted, not quite a smile, not quite surrender. The silence stretched again, thick and electric. I could smell the rain in her hair, feel the warmth of her body through the space that barely existed between us. "I hate that this feels right," she said softly. I leaned in, my voice barely a breath. "Then stop me." She didn't. Her eyes fluttered closed, her forehead resting lightly against mine. Every thought, every fear, every boundary we'd drawn between us dissolved into the sound of our breathing. "This isn't love," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Then what is it?" Her hand slipped to my neck. "It's what I forgot I could feel." Outside, a car door slammed. The sound jolted us back into reality. She exhaled shakily, pulling back just enough to meet my eyes. The decision was there, in the way her shoulders straightened, in the way her lips trembled but didn't move closer again. "I can't let him see you," she said. "Not like this. Not when I finally understand what this is." "And what is this?" I asked. She stepped back, brushing her fingers down my sleeve as if erasing the memory of touch. "A beginning we can't finish." Her words were gentle, but they cut clean through the air. I wanted to argue, to pull her back into that small, dangerous space where everything felt true, but something in her eyes stopped me. It wasn't rejection. It was recognition. She smiled, sad, soft, real. "Now you know me," she said. "All of me." Then, before I could speak, she turned and opened the door. The sound of the rain rushed in, cold and endless. And for the first time, I understood, she wasn't walking away from me. She was walking away from me. To be continued. It had been 2 weeks since that night, since the rain, the near kiss, the door closing softly between us. I told myself it was over. That what we had, whatever it was, had lived its brief, impossible life and ended the only way it could. But endings have a way of echoing. And sometimes the echo sounds a lot like a beginning. I saw her again by chance, or maybe not by chance, outside the bookstore she liked. She was holding a coffee, staring into the window like she was watching someone else's life happen. When she noticed me, she smiled, small, cautious, but real. "Hi," I said. "Hi." Neither of us moved at first. Then she nodded toward the cafe next door. "Walk with me?" We didn't talk much. Just the sound of our steps on the pavement, the occasional brush of her sleeve against mine. The air was cool, the sky pale and tired looking, the kind of day where everything feels slightly in between. Inside the cafe, we sat near the window. She wrapped her hands around her cup, as if gathering warmth. "You look tired," I said. "I am," she admitted, then smiled faintly. "But I've been sleeping better lately." "That's good." "It is." Silence again, not the tense kind this time, just quiet, easy. After a while, she said, he came by the next morning. We talked. My chest tightened. And? I told him the truth. About everything. About you. I held her gaze, waiting for the part that would hurt. He didn't take it well, she said softly. But it made me realize something. What? That I was done apologizing for wanting to feel alive again. Something inside me eased, though I didn't let it show. She reached across the table then, slow, uncertain, and placed her hand over mine. It wasn't bold. It wasn't dramatic. Just real. Her fingers were warm, a little shaky. I don't know what this is supposed to be, she said. And maybe we'll get it wrong. Maybe it'll fall apart. But I don't want to keep pretending I don't care. I turned my hand, lacing my fingers through hers. Then don't, I said quietly. Her eyes softened, that familiar blend of strength and sadness. You still think this feels perfect? I smiled. No. It feels real. That's better. She laughed, that low, unguarded sound that had started everything. Then she leaned forward, resting her forehead against mine. The simplest, gentlest closeness. No promises. No conditions. Just two people breathing the same moment, unafraid for once to let it exist. Outside, the rain had started again, soft, steady, familiar. She didn't move away this time. Stay a little longer, she whispered. And I did. We sat there in that quiet corner of the world, her hand in mine, the air between us calm at last, not right or wrong, not forbidden or perfect, just ours.